Welcome to another News of the Week episode. And unlike in the last News of the Week episode, where there were tons of news that I had to go over that happened in the league in the last couple of days, this News of the Week episode is going to be the complete opposite because there wasn't really a lot of newsworthy things to talk about in the News of the Week episode for this edition. Probably due to the fact that, with the ongoing CBA negotiation between the MLSPA and the ownership group around MLS is pretty much intensified, and I can't not kind of stop emphasizing how important that decision is going to be, whether or not if both of these sides are going to agree on the revised CBA by the time that February 4th 11:59 p.m. deadline is going to met, because that is really the thing that will kind of hang in the balance of whether or not if the league is going to start on schedule this year, or the fact that we are going to be heading in a historic first ever lockout in league history, and that it could get really ugly in terms of how if this league does go into a lockout, how in the world is both of these sides that is already kind of butting heads against each other is going to somehow prevail in cooler heads and eventually figure out a way to come up with a new CBA and end this lockout. But that being said, in terms of some of the news that did happen from these last couple of days, we did have a couple of signings that has happened, and a couple of MLS teams decided to get a couple of midfield depth. In fact, it's actually the two finalists from last year MLS Cup that decided to get some signing in terms of boosting their midfield depth. And that, of course, is the Seattle Sounders and Columbus Crew, with the Sounders signing Kellen Rowe off free agency, while the Columbus Crew pick up veteran midfielder Perry Kitchen from the LA Galaxy. And again, I think this is a decent signing for both of these teams, boosting their midfield depth. And for Kellen Rowe, this is kind of a homecoming for him, since he used to live in the Seattle area, and now he's going to be able to play for his hometown club and hopefully maybe win some trophy with them. And for Perry Kitchen, he finally get out of a team that looks like could be on a potential rebuild, that is the LA Galaxy, and now going to be joining a team that is also looking to try to defend their crown, and maybe even he can win some trophy while he is joining the Columbus Crew. Now, moving on, in terms of the next news, we got the Vancouver Whitecaps signed goalkeeper Evan Newton from Indy 11. Now, this is kind of a strange signing, because with this signing, that means there's now 4 goalkeeper for the Vancouver Whitecaps on their depth chart. And I understand the Whitecaps last year, they kind of went through a little bit of a goalkeeping problem, where they were literally down to their third string goalkeeper during the MLS's back tournament. But obviously, it's kind of, I would say, a blessing in disguise, the fact that they had a goalkeeping issue last year, because we would never have got the sensation of Thomas Hasal making him really just a player that completely came out of nowhere and making a name for himself in the league. And with this move, I'm not quite sure does that mean that his future with the Vancouver Whitecaps potentially is uncertain. I would assume probably not, because I think him and Maxime Crepeau is going to be battling for that top spot, and I still feel like most likely Crepeau is going to get that main goalkeeping spot back heading into next season. And Evan Newton, I think he's just going to be one of those goalkeeper that's kind of like an emergency goalkeeper in case if the Whitecaps does go into a goalkeeper crisis as they did last year, that maybe eventually he is going to get minutes for this team. But either way, I don't expect him to get a lot of minutes, and this is more like the Whitecaps kind of now making sure that they have some insurance policy in case if they go through another goalkeeping crisis as they did last year. But then again, I feel like their insurance policy in terms of goalkeeper is kind of taken in an extreme way, with the fact that now they have 4 goalkeeper in their depth chart, and there's not a lot of MLS team, if any MLS team, that actually have 4 goalkeeper in terms of their squad. Now, moving on, in terms of the next news, involved DeAndre Yedlin, who, remember how he's been linked with multiple clubs, and that there was a lot of rumors that he could potentially come back to MLS. Well, that seems like is not going to be the case, and those rumors is pretty much dead, because he actually has recently reported that he is going to be staying in Europe, and he's actually going to be going to the Turkish Super League and going to be joining one of the biggest team there in Galatasaray. And the Turkish Super League, in some way, I think I know that some people say that that's kind of like the MLS version of Europe, where the Turkish Super League always tends to have these aging kind of former European star player that decide to go there if they don't want to go retire or go finishing their career or pretty much play their last couple of years in their playing career in China, Middle East, or even in MLS. And there's also a lot of misfits that used to be decent player in other leagues, but now is kind of stuck, kind of fell out of favor, and now they're going to have to go to Turkey in terms of that. And I guess DeAndre Yedlin kind of fits that status where he used to be decent when he was with Newcastle, but then he kind of fell out of favor, and now he's going to be going to Galatasaray. Although I will say the fact that with what I mentioned about how the Turkish Super League is kind of like the MLS version of Europe, that technically isn't true because MLS isn't one of those leagues that decide to go with a bunch of misfit from Europe and decide to sign them in a mass production like they do in the Turkish Super League. And at least MLS is investing in a way where this league is heading to an era where they're going to stop relying on these aging Europeans star player to be the star of the league, and they're also trying to be kind of more of a selling league, unlike what I just mentioned about the Turkish Super League. But either way, I'm not quite sure if Yetlin's going to be there for a bit. I still think potentially Yetlin is going to be coming back to MLS, but I feel like maybe once he play a couple of season or maybe even 1 or 2 season with Galatasaray, and they maybe fell out of favor there. Maybe there's a chance where he is going to be coming back to MLS, and it's going to be interesting to see which team is going to potentially get them. And I know a lot of teams are looking to try to get Yetlin, because if he does come to MLS, I think he could definitely be one of the best fullback option in the league. Now, speaking of fullbacks, the Portland Timbers have report that they are literally on the final hurdle in terms of signing their new defender and new fullback, Jose Carlos Van Reken from Chivas. And I kind of mentioned this before, where I think this is a decent signing for the Timbers, and another example of the Timbers clearly addressing their biggest issue that they need this off season, which is they absolutely need to sort out that defense that was very mediocre heading into last season. And now the fact that they are kind of sorting that out, it'd be very interesting to see how the Timbers are going to do next season, with the fact that we know they have a decent attack, but now also been able to try to fix their defense with some of these signings and some of these reinforcement heading into this offseason. This could definitely be a very dangerous team heading into next year. Now, Atlanta United is also set to sign Franco Ibarra, but they also are going to be sending Eric Remedi on loan to Argentina. And I guess this move is mainly because, Franco Ibarra plays the same position as Eric Remedi, so they kind of had to get rid of one of their player. Although in this case, they're not really getting rid of Eric Remedi, but more like sending him on loan to Argentina. And Remedi, I remember when he first played with Atlanta, there was definitely a lot of speculation that this was another example of one of these young South American player that eventually Atlanta is going to develop them and eventually sell them off to Europe. And it just didn't really kind of materialize, as Remedi has been kind of mediocre in the previous season that he's been in. He has kind of took a really big regress. Well, pretty much a lot of players on that Atlanta team from last season that either hasn't been injured or potentially sold off to another team has really regressed a lot with how bad last season was. So yeah, now he's going to be going back to Argentina and hopefully maybe gain his confidence a little bit. But now that also means that if Franco Ibarra does do well with Atlanta, maybe Eric Remedi future with Atlanta might not be anymore, and that maybe Remedi is actually going to be staying in Argentina permanently instead of potentially coming back to this team after his loan deal is over. Now, the New York Red Bulls center back Aaron Long is actually drawing interest with multiple European team, and there is actually one team that he is actually seriously drawn interest to. And you know how in these past couple of days, and really these past couple of weeks, we have seen a couple of surprising MLS players that decided to make the jump to Europe and take some loan loan deal with some championship team. We saw Jordan Morris, of course, decided to do that a couple of days ago, joining Swansea on loan. And we also saw Paul Arriola that potentially he could also be a player that will be joining Jordan Morris to go to Swansea on loan. Well, Aaron Long, in this case, he is actually going to be planning to go to Europe and once again going to England and basically be doing a loan move with one of those teams. Although this team is not a championship level team. Instead, the team that there's been rumor that he's going to be joining on loan and drawing heavy interest is actually Liverpool. And I feel like this is definitely a move that, I would be surprised if Aaron Long decided to do this, especially the fact that, if he does go to Liverpool, yes, Liverpool is having some issue in terms of their defense ever since Van Dijk, of course, unfortunately suffered that nasty injury that, of course, ended his season, or potentially ended his season that he suffered earlier this year. I'm still don't think Aaron Long, if he does go to Liverpool, he's gonna get a lot of playing minutes there, and that the only difference between what I mentioned about Jordan Morris and Paul Arriola going to the championship and joining Swansea is that at least they're gonna get playing time there. With Aaron Long, I know that he has been drawn interest with Premier League team in the past, but this is kind of a big surprise. The fact that he basically gone with drawn interest of teams like West Ham to potentially sign him on a permanent deal to now being linked with probably one, if not the biggest team in the Premier League and the defending champion that is Liverpool. And again, I just feel like this is probably not a good move for him to do if he wants to continue to develop his career, that he decided to join one of the biggest, about the biggest team in the Premier League, and potentially not going to get a lot of minutes while he's at there. But we shall see whether or not if that is going to be the case. But moving on, in terms of the next news, is former U.S. women's national team head coach Jill Ellis is reported to join Sacramento in a front office role, and there's actually a report that she's actually going to be joining the NWSL team from Sacramento and take a front office role, potentially a sporting director role for that team. By the way, this is great to see that she is able to get an opportunity to hold a front office role, whether for an NWSL team or an MLS team, and hopefully maybe this will kind of start to set a trend where a lot of these women can get a chance to potentially take a role in terms of the front office of an MLS team or an NWSL team, because we haven't seen a lot of female that in the league that has been able to take a front office role for an MLS team, or even in the NWSL level too. But finally, in terms of the last news, is that DC United is set to break ground on their new state-of-the-art training complex, and it's great to see that DC United joined a list of teams that is going to have a state-of-the-art training complex. But also, anytime when I see a team is able to break ground on a new state-of-the-art training complex, it kind of makes me a little jealous, and kind of makes me kind of envy the fact that the Quakes still have not been able to do that. Like, come on, San Jose, can you please finally get your act together in terms of building a state-of-the-art training complex? I mean, the Quakes training complex, for those of you that don't know, it's still that little mini training complex, or not even, I wouldn't even call it a training complex, but more like a couple of soccer field that is near the parking lot along the tracks, and only a couple of feet away from the stadium. But still, it's just, that is clearly not what you should call a state-of-the-art training complex. And I know the Quakes for a long time has been rumored to have eventually built a new state-of-the-art training complex, but it just never materialized. And that, that I feel like some people might not get this, but building a state-of-the-art training complex is actually very important, because you can maybe even attract some of these players to join your team because you have a state-of-the-art training complex. Because after all, if you're a player and you want to join a team, would you rather join a team that has a state-of-the-art training complex where you can be using a lot of state-of-the-art equipment while you are training each day, or you would be joining a team that just put a random soccer pitch in the middle of a dirt parking lot next to the stadium, and that's basically what you call a state-of-the-art training complex. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. As always, let me know in the comments below if there's any news that I didn't mention on this board that you want me to mention in the comments below. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.